So, welcome to Starting from Green. What on earth do I mean by that? Well, let's dive into the video and find out. Okay, so let's make this stuff about the order in which we refactor more concrete. Here are the changes we're going to be making in terms of our class dependencies. The red arrows are the things that are going. Basically, the tank is out of here. The green arrows are the new dependencies, like the AI controller is going to talk straight to the aiming component, and the aiming component is going to talk to the projectile, and the grey ones are the boring old ones that are staying the same. So that's fine, but it doesn't really give us a handle on a sensible order to refactor in. So let's take a different view on things. Let's map out the methods in tank. Why in tank? Well, because tank's the thing that we're going to be removing. It's the tank code here that we're going to be chopping into and removing nearly all of, basically, and moving into the aiming component. So let's look at the AMAT method. It requires or depends upon the aiming component pointer and the launch speed. They are the member variables that this AMAT uses. There you go, the aiming component and the launch speed. Fine. How about fire? Well, the fire method uses all these things. The reload time, barrel last fire time, etc. Let's take a look. Oh, they're all in here. Okay, so what's quite interesting though is that they both use the launch speed. So what this means is if we want to try and move one method at a time, which is what I recommend, this is what I mean by keeping it close to compiling. Well, I would firstly favour AMAT. Why? Well, it really should be relatively simple. The aiming component pointer is not even going to be needed once this is in the aiming component. The launch speed, if we were to take the launch speed out, if we were to actually chop this launch speed code out of the tank.h here, cut it out, then what would happen is we know that the firing would fail because of this diagram. But that's okay, we can live with that. In fact, what we could do is we could leave the launch speed here and leave ourselves a copy and say to do remove once firing is moved to aiming component. So we can leave ourselves a copy so that our code still runs. So let's do that. Let's do aiming first. Now, this is where we talk about the discipline of red-green refactor. This comes from test-driven development. You start off in a situation where stuff doesn't work. That's the situation we're actually in. And this is the important point, is that right now, your aiming doesn't work. This is why this video is called Getting to Green. We need to get to green. We don't aim at the moment, okay? So we can't refactor something that doesn't work. So let's fix aiming before we refactor aiming. In fact, we're not even going to refactor aiming in this video. We're going to do it in the next one. This video is about fixing aiming because there are some problems with it. So your first thought before you refactor should be, let's get the functionality just working. So you have a commit before you start any of this. You do some code that works, you commit to say it works, and then you do your refactor. So we're trying to get to green. Then you refactor, which is the blue, and then you repeat. So we're going to go around this loop once for AMAT, and then once more for the fire method. Okay, so red, green, refactor, remember that. Okay, we need to get to green. What's not working? Well, there's a load of errors here. Some of these will be ensure statements. Let's see what we've got. The first one, tank aiming component. On line 30 of tank CPP, we have an ensure fail. So let's go to tank CPP line 30. What's going on here then? Well, we know this is going to fail because we never set that tank aiming component. But due to the things we've learned in the last couple of videos, we know there's an easy way of doing that. What I want you to put in your tank aiming component begin play, which is after the tank has put itself together, is you can go and find the aiming component by just saying find component by class, new tank aiming component, and that's it. Oops, provided you put your semicolon in the right place and you get your indentation right. That's it, we're just adding that line. At begin play, the tank goes and finds its own aiming component. Now I know this is writing code into the old architecture, but we need to get to working code before we refactor. That is the point I'm trying to stress here. So I'm going to recompile the code. By the way, these ensure statements will only come up once per cycle of compilation. So if you're wondering why they're not coming up, you need to recompile with new code or they won't come up again. Okay, now we've got a different error here, which is saying that the barrel on tank line 38 is failing. Let's go look at that. This one here. Now, this is where we operate discipline. This is about firing, not aiming at. Tempting to fix this now, not the time to do it, because we are focusing on moving AMAT code. We don't care that firing doesn't work. We are trying to get AMAT into the green section now. So to break this big problem down, this big mess down, that's what we're doing. We're saying, let's forget it and just focusing on aiming. It does still, of course, raise the question as to why is aiming still not working? Interesting, hey? It actually does have something to do with barrel tangentially, but it's nothing to do with that ensure you're getting on line 38, trust me. But it's going to be your job to work out why. So get aiming working. If your aiming code doesn't work, your aiming code may work. You may have noticed the stupid bug that I introduced a few videos ago. You may not. If you didn't, and your aiming's not working, go and find it. It can be hard to track this bug. Use some log statements. Follow the execution through. Think about where aiming starts. Let me give you a hint in this case. My aiming starts, my tank, with a player controller. The AI tanks with the AI controller. Follow the execution through. Find out what's running and what's not. I suggest you use a single log statement, put it somewhere, compile, see if it's being run, move it, and find out where the problem is. Have a go, pause the video, and see if you can get aiming working if yours isn't. If yours is working, then what I'd like you to do is to have a look at my code. In fact, I'll give you a hint. It's in this file here. The problem is actually on this screen. So if your aiming works, it's because you haven't made the mistake that's on this screen. Where on this screen is the code that is stopping my aiming working? Okay, pause the video, have a go at that, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, welcome back. So let's start with the tank player controller. Let's say why is the... In fact, I'm going to take a shortcut. I'm not going to start with the tank player controller because look, my aiming's not working and the AI tank's aiming's not working. So if you remember the call stack, it's probably not the AI controller or the player controller because neither of us are aiming. Okay, so let's take that as an assumption. It's unlikely the bug is in two places. Let's just save a little bit of time and go to the tank. Let's see if we get this far. So I'm going to make a single UE log. In fact, first thing I'm going to do is rip out any existing UE logs because we've got too many in the project potentially. Let's go and have a look. Do we need to be doing this donkey construct? No, we've learnt our lesson there. Let's get rid of that. Do we need to be printing out the tank begin play? No, we've learnt our lesson. Let's get rid of that. Do we need to be saying this? Actually, we don't. It's not happening, but we've got an ensure here. We don't need to be logging this error. It's pretty obvious what's happening with the ensure. So with ensure, you don't even need any of this stuff in tank player controller. So I'm going to change this to be consistent. Actually, I'm going to say if not ensure aiming component return. And then that, okay, so that gets rid of that log and does a tiny change to the begin play of the AI player controller. And we're good to go. So we have no logs left. Okay, so now I'm not going to get noise on the log. Let's go back to the tank where we were and ask the question, does AMAT get called? UE log, log temp, warning, something very simple. I'm just going to say text, I'm here. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm going to move that log around. So let's go and compile. Have a quick look. Clear the logs. Clear your filter. Important. If you've got a filter on, you ain't seeing nothing in the logs that doesn't contain that word. We're going to play the game and see if we get lots of I'm here logs. What do we get? We get a long pause, and we do get I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. So the code is getting that far. Let's move on. What happens next? We go into the tank aiming component and we call AMAT. So let's go there. Now we're pretty confident this call is going to happen. We're pretty confident it's got a barrel actually, otherwise this ensure would fail. So maybe this move towards barrel's not happening. Let's try that. It's okay to binary search, to not go through every single stage, but to try it as long as you home in on the problem. Let's see if we get this far, moving the barrel. Compile. While you're compiling, clear your logs because otherwise you can't be 100% sure that this new stuff is, that this I'm here code isn't a log that was already there. And then let's play. And we get none of the I'm here's, I don't think. Let me see. No, we get a lot of errors, but as we play here, we're not seeing I'm here's at the bottom. Okay, so you can even just search for here, not a single instance. So it's not getting there. Now, this brings us to the bug that I introduced. The bug was quite interesting. I said, as I rush through, let's just do two different ensure statements so that we get two different tests and we could tell if it was the barrel or the turret. But look at my logic, it sucks. This says if ensure barrel. Well, if there's a barrel or there's a turret, basically, if the situation is somewhat normal in either respect, leave this perfectly good code. How daft. What I meant to say was if not ensure barrel or if not ensure turret, then return. And it's this lack of not that means that you don't even get an error to tell you what's going on. That's the sort of thing that can be hard to pin down, which is where that technique of putting a log in and then moving the log through the execution can be a sensible way of doing it. And you don't have to, you go straight to the problem. What I mean by binary searching is that, this can be the start of the execution flow. This can be the end of this execution flow. You can try logging here if you want, but then you're welcome to dive in the middle and go, well, it's okay here, but it's not okay here, so the problem must be in the middle here. It's a bit like the binary search we did in the first section, I believe. But anyway, you get the idea. You can home in on the problem. You don't have to go line by line by line. You can kind of chop the space. That's what I meant by that. Okay, so hopefully that will solve it. Let's compile. And if it does solve it, where are we in terms of our general overview? Well, then we're at green. We actually have aiming working. If we have aiming working, then we're in a position to refactor it. There you go. Aiming works on me, and it works on these other tanks. This other tank's not moving, so I'm just going to reinstantiate him in case he's busted. Hit F11 for full screen, and you can see that both tanks are doing their comic moving, and we're all aiming. Good. Not the new architecture, but we are in the green. Functionality is working, even if code is messy stage. Fantastic. You know what we do now, don't you? What we do now is we commit. So I'm going to save all my work, and then I'm going to commit this lecture, because we have made significant progress here. We have got to the point where our code is ready to be refactored, and this is the starting point we'll fall back to if we can't make the refactor work. So always get to green, commit, then start your refactor. See you in the next video.